introduction, guys. My name is Brooke and Dusen. I work for Twitch. I'm the Director of Business Development there. I'm really excited to be giving the inaugural talk at GameVidExpo. So thank you for having me. Thanks to all of our sponsors for hosting. And this talk, it's titled New Gaming Media as a Business, What the Industry Thinks of You. A little bit about that new gaming media, being you, the content creators. And in general, over the past few years, we've seen a massive shift in the way that games are thought about and marketed and the way in which community engages with them. And with any change in operations, there's always a lot of opportunity. So where does that opportunity lie, and where's the the opportunity for you guys, the content creators, to work with this and leverage it to your advantages? Because there's a lot of questions right now that need answering. So a little bit about myself. I've been with Twitch for over 3 years now. Actually, before Twitch was Twitch, I'm kind of one of the old Justin TVers. And it's my job to actually go around the country, talk to game makers, everyone from the AAA studios, excuse me, down to the indies, about how to engage with Twitch, right? Whether that's from a technical standpoint, giving tools to the gamers to create content, interact with the community. From a strategic standpoint, okay, how do they leverage the platform? What should they do? Should they be creating original content to, maybe if the game has a competitive bent, then we try to leverage that as well. So for this, it's kind of a different perspective, how they think of you. Now, Twitch launched 2.5 years ago, a little over 2.5 at E3 2011. And I actually think, I like to talk about E3 because I think it's an interesting annual data point to talk about the way in which the industry's perception of this this medium has changed. I remember the first E3, we didn't have a booth. We had just announced this idea of Twitch. I don't think we even really realized what we were doing in some ways. And we were running around and no one would talk to us, right? Which I guess isn't that surprising but then of course, then you get to 2012, we had relaunched, we went from Twitch TV to Twitch, and people started paying attention to us. They had heard of us, and they would take meetings, but really just out of curiosity. I don't think, it was more just, well, why? Why do people watch other people play games? Like, they just didn't get it, right? And of course, when you're in the position where you have to explain the value and merit of something and then try to convince them that they should invest time, money, and resources in that, whatever that is, that's quite a difficult thing to do. But then, of course, with this year, with our Microsoft announcement and Xbox One, it's gone beyond the why. I don't think that question's quite answered, but they understand at least it's important, right? And that it's something they should invest in. So it's become well, I don't quite understand it, but how do I do it? Tell me how to do it, whatever that is. And so that's kind of where we're at now, or where a lot of these studios are at, where they're interested, but they're not quite sure how to approach it, right? And so we'll talk a bit more about that. But, I guess that the main point is everyone from AAAs up to indies, they understand it's important. They understand it's important from an engagement perspective, from a exposure perspective, from a hype building perspective, right? And the biggest thing that video content does, and I apologize if I talk about Twitch. YouTube's obviously an equally important part of this. I just tend to think about Twitch a bit more. But all video content has an incredible ability to drive action. I've actually talked with a lot of indie developers that completely have stopped doing any marketing, any PR that isn't video content based, whether that be Twitch or YouTube, because they just don't see the data. If they do a big PR campaign, they spend a ton of time talking to PR, media reporters and getting coverage, and they might see some response to that, but it's not enough to warrant their investment in time, right? Where with video content, they get coverage, and a lot of times unintended coverage, they see a massive spike in installs or downloads or purchases, whatever the game is. And that's really, so they, more than anyone, the indies really understand the importance of this. Now, the problem is, and this is true with indies as well as the AAAs, is you look at these studios, and they're simply just not built to create content or to really do anything interested in the space. You know, they're game studios, they're game developers, they make games, and they do that very well. So asking them to, at the same time, be entertaining and create content that other people want to watch is kind of a stretch, right? And so we're in this position where there's interest, they know it's valuable, and they want it, again, but they don't really have the capabilities, the expertise, the background. They just don't know what to do. So, of course, you guys are here, and you guys do that very well. All you do is create content, right? So we have a need, and we have a supply, and so the question is, how can we get these two sides to work together? And so that, I mean, that's kind of why I'm here, and why I'm excited to be here, is to figure that out. And I think, and we've been seeing this over time, you're gonna see the two sides which used to completely, well, I don't wanna say completely ignore each other, but at least the studios didn't really pay attention. You're gonna start to see this come together. So talk about different ways in which we have seen this thus far. Well, one way is with any indie game developer, right? You know, they're desperate for attention. If you go up and you say, hey, I want to create a video about your game, I guarantee you they're going to be so excited. They're, okay, how can I help? We would love you to cover my game, right? So you're essentially bringing all this value. You bring the content creation expertise, the distribution with your audience, and then okay, so what do they have that's valuable to you? Maybe you can get early access to the title. Maybe you can get them to give an hour of their time to jump on Skype and answer questions, right? And to create more interesting content. And then at the same time, you can gain additional distribution, because those guys have their own media and marketing channels, right? But there's opportunity for you guys to cross-pollinate between the two. And so leveraging that and working together, you know, to improve each other's presence and build that is very, very beneficial. And then the big thing we always say, and we really want to encourage, is not to, you know, developer Q&A and playing through the game. That's kind of, you know, obviously it's an established framework. People like to see that. But is there anything also outside of the box you can do? One great example is Crumps. You know, Binding of Isaac came out. And, you know, the game, it wasn't timed, it wasn't really meant, but Crumps created the Binding of Isaac racing, right? Where now he has tons of content creators contributing to this league, and he's giving commentary, and he's built a massive audience on top of this really cool and interesting idea. And of course, Marcus, the creator, is super thrilled with it, and is jumping in his stream and talking about it, and they have a great relationship now. So, you know, I guess the moral is, you know, reach out, ask the developers what they want. Maybe they have ideas for their game that you can work together to accomplish. But, you know, keep in mind, it's you guys are bringing value to this conversation. And as long as the value that you're bringing is greater than whatever you're asking of the developer, I see, you know, opportunity for interaction. And you know, as you continue to work together, that relationship will build over time. And in many ways, you know, I envision you guys as kind of the industry's new PR. So that's the indies. Now, let's talk about the AAA guys, because a little bit harder to get in touch with, right? I think one thing that we need to understand with AAAs and the big industry is they're a little bit scared, and this shouldn't be surprising. You know, anytime there's a new entertainment medium, people are always a little bit hesitant about it. Like, literally when radio was announced, people were worried that their kids were being brainwashed because they were sitting listening to radio all night, right? That was actually a concern back then. With Twitch specifically and live video, there's a strong concern over live content because it's unpredictable in some ways, right? So you have to keep in mind, okay, there's gonna be a hesitancy when it comes to this, but I think through getting to know these guys, just like the indies, you guys can come over that, overcome that. And really what that entails is broadcasting their game regularly, getting to know the community managers at the studio. You know, every studio today has a community management team, and behaving yourselves, right? You know, the simple things. Don't swear excessively. There's actually a term that marketers like to use for people in your position. They call them brand ambassadors, right? So it's in the company's interest to enable and empower these brand ambassadors to evangelize their title and their IP. And so making sure you have a great relationship with those community managers and that studio will gain you access and opportunity to more things. So that being said, when you think of AAAs, you have to think of the business model of gaming and how that's shifted over the last few years. You know, it used to be the case where you would go, you would spend $50 on a box game, you'd take it home, and from a studio perspective, after you buy the game, they don't really care, you know, what happens. I mean, obviously, like, they want to produce a good game, so you buy maybe the next game in their franchise, but whether you play for 2 minutes or 4 hours or, you know, 6 months, that doesn't really matter to them, right? Within this old paradigm of box games. And because of this, the marketing departments at these companies are built to reflect that business model where there's a ton of knowledge and strategy and people and coordination that goes around launching a game and launch marketing. So from a content creator perspective, you know, these people, these marketers, at least they know, or they think they know everything it takes to make a successful game launch. And they have their plans, and tons of people are working, and they're super busy and yada yada. So if you're not part of that plan kind of early on, it's probably difficult to get involved in that part of the cycle, the life cycle of that game. But one thing that we've seen, obviously, is the advent of free-to-play and DLC, and that becoming an important revenue stream for studios. So now you have it where it used to just be launch was the only thing that matters, to now, okay, well, it's within the game company's best interest to keep players playing for longer amounts of time and re-engaging them with the title and so on and so forth. Now, in this sense, and this is nothing, you know, new, but you have to keep in mind, the marketers don't have a good strategy to go about this. They haven't thought about this problem. There's not a lot of expertise in this kind of area of the game. So, and this is kind of where Twitch happens to provide some of the most value. You look at, you know, a lot of the big competitive tournaments today, and you know, Counter-Strike. The Counter-Strike tournaments are a massive re-engagement mechanism for that game. You know, every time one of those events happen, you see tons of players who might not have played for 6 months jump back in. And so they know this, and they want to act on it, but they don't know the best way how. So after launch, the question is, okay, you know, again, studio wants to engage. Twitch is a great re-engage, Twitch and YouTube, great re-engagement mechanism for those games. So how can you guys work together, right? Again, studio still, tough time creating content, stuff that's interesting, don't know what the community wants, they're sort of out of touch. But you guys, you know, obviously are on the ground floor. So how can you work together? And again, creating content, making the game studios comfortable with your channel and the content you're creating, and then eventually promoting that content back, you know, hopefully getting promotion from the studio, getting early access. These studios have resources, you know, so I've heard of you know, them flying people to PAX and you know, other things. And so there's, within this paradigm, again, you'll have to kind of pitch them or have them pitch you and again, work together. But there's huge opportunities here for collaboration that I don't think a lot of people are leveraging. And so as long as you, again, the paradigm still maintains, as long as the value you're bringing to the game is greater than whatever their initial effort is, or at least perceived value early on, then, you know, there's an opportunity to work together. And the longer you guys work together, the more comfortable they become with you, you know, the greater your perceived value becomes and the more they'd be willing to invest in you. So that's kind of, I guess, where we're at. You know, again, there's lots of stories of people doing well within this and working with gaming companies, but I think we're kind of at the point where right now they know it's important, they're just lost. So I think they're open to ideas, and if you guys can create value, have a track record of good and interesting and PC content that the studio would be proud to promote, right? You have to think about this. Then you know, there's opportunity for you there to build your presence and to leverage their resources to make better content. And I guess the last thing is, you know, for any game in any studio, the earlier you get in, the more opportunity for growth that you have. You know, of course, it's a huge risk-reward thing, because the smaller the game is, the more unproven it is, and maybe that game never gets big, and, you know, that's too bad. But assuming you get in early, you know, in a lot of these launch titles, you have to think of, okay, which titles are supportive of the community, right? And this is something that's probably easy to see from the beginning. You know, what are they doing to invest in Twitch and YouTube? Are they advertising community events from within their game client? You know, are there the interstitials that say, hey, go watch this tournament or go watch this live stream? You know, we're revealing the next content patch on DSE. So, you know, those are kind of indicators that you know that at least that team or studio is thinking about this. And then, you know, like I say, it's something that you'll need to prove to them that, okay, I'm creating content about this game, I can create interesting content, and it's content that you guys can be proud of, so let's work together and do something really cool. Because you're taking work off their plate, and at the same time giving value, and then hopefully extracting some value as a result of that. But yeah, so I guess that's it. You know, for me, I spend all my time talking to marketing directors and you know, community leads. And so I'm really excited to be here. I want to hear a lot about kind of your guys' experience in the space, whether you've interacted with studios, and what that, you know, has that been beneficial. I know a lot of smaller stories about this, but I'd love to learn more and hear more about what's worked for you guys. So I'll be here all weekend. Please come and say hi. So thank you.